Good afternoon, America. Good afternoon, Rochester, New York. Welcome to the We the People Podcast Network. This is Chad Hummel, your host on the Got Freedom Podcast. Thank you for joining me here today. We're in studio here in Rochester, New York. Again, the We the People Podcast studio with our producer, Austin.
Hello.
Austin's going to introduce himself the way he always does.
Of course.
There it is.
How's everybody doing?
There's the thumbs up from Austin, letting us know that he's here, alive and well.
Always.
He hasn't been killed by any of Biden's policies yet.
No, I'm waiting for the long COVID to get me.
It's getting just Tom, isn't it? We've heard.
Oh yeah, that's it.
All right. So we have a very special guest in the studio today. Everybody should recognize the gentleman that's on the screen. He's sitting next to me, but in the studio, he's actually sitting across from me. And as I think it was Greg Kelly pointed out on that live show that we went on there, he mentioned that you were taller than me.
Well, I think it was the chair at the time.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the screen right now. It looks like you're about 6 inches taller than me. I don't like.
I think I'm sitting too close to the camera. I think it's
back up a little bit.
Back off, Calus.
Usually Kimberly's sitting across from me and she's a little bit lower. So yeah.
Well, I am sitting in her chair, so I don't know how it's positioned.
Yeah,
height wise.
I think it's up a little too high.
I don't want to mess around with that.
Kimberly always wants to be, the tallest person on screen.
Yeah, I don't want to mess.
She won't let it be any other way.
All right.
Can I take these off now?
Yeah, you could take. You could put that down if you want.
All right.
It's up to you.
Yeah. Weird, didn't it?
Yeah. I usually take mine off during the show. I only put them on when it's when there's a video on because it gets a little warm underneath those things.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
All right. So Dave Calus is in studio today. We are going to be talking about his situation in Webster. As many of you know, Dave was dragged out of. In my opinion, he was assaulted from a civil standpoint. He was assaulted by the security team at the Webster Board of Education meeting. You all may recall this video that went viral. Is there audio playing right now, Austin?
There's not, but there can be if you.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's seen this video. This is the video that went viral. It went so viral that Dave made it all the way onto the Hannity show. He was on Fox and Friends. He was on Newsmax TV 2 different times. And as many of you know, I've talked about it at length on my podcast, and I've updated you guys, I think as recently as last week. That individual there in the brown pants that was seen assaulting Dave was due in court last week around this time. He was due in Webster court to answer charges of harassment. And apparently the update there is he did not appear in court because according to the district attorney's office, he did retain an attorney, which of course he has the right to do. And his attorney contacted the court on the day of court or on the evening of prior to court and requested an adjournment or a postponement of the court date. And the DA indicated to me that he would let me know what that new date is, and I haven't heard anything yet. So we're going to get to Dave's story in a minute. Before we get there, though, I wanted to go over a couple things. One thing I wanted to talk about. So this past weekend, my daughter and I, we went out for lunch in Webster. We went to Panera over in your neck of the woods, I think, Dave.
Yeah.
And then after Panera, we went to Barnes and Nobles. And in this day and age, everything's technology. Do you still read books, Dave?
I have books everywhere in my house.
Not to put you on the spot.
No. I read the most recent book that I'm reading right now is called Race to the Bottom by Luke Rosiak.
Okay.
It's all about the public education system in the United States.
So is it a paperback, a hardbound?
I read because I dog ear,
Awesome.
I highlight. I mean, I put, reminders, I flag, I do everything.
Yeah.
I can't Nook or whatever the Kindle thing is.
Or read online.
Can't do it.
Or what about the audio books in your car?
I can't even do that.
Yeah.
I've
never tried.
Maybe it's just the way, I was brought up reading, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
I've never tried, but for me, and I don't know if other people feel the same way, and this might sound corny, but there's something about having the book in your hand. It gives you a sense of, I'm about to learn something. I'm about to dive into something. I'm about to educate myself or entertain myself. Either way, it feels there's something about having that book in your hand, being able to kind of relax and dive into it.
I agree.
As opposed to you're driving down the road, you're probably headed somewhere to a meeting that you're late for, and you're trying to focus on listening to an audiobook or I don't know. There's something. So going to a place like Barnes and Nobles, I don't know. I still think it's a good feeling. You walk in, there's literature everywhere.
Right.
You kind of look around and
Yeah. And there is science behind.
science.
Yeah,
is that still
that's
a
real
thing?
science. It's not Fauci science, but there is science behind actually reading something and then writing it. And the repetitiveness of reading it, writing it helps put it into long-term memory.
Oh, okay.
So when you're learning something, using an audiobook, it might be good entertainment if it's fiction, but
Sure.
I mean, you can't read, a legal, binder and say, oh yeah, now I can defend Dave Calus in court on an audio case.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
So walking around Barnes and Noble on Saturday with my daughter, I was, looking at all sorts of different kind of books, etc. And, they always say you can't judge a book by its cover, but you're sure going to buy it probably based on its cover. You're going to get intrigued by it based on its cover. So I came across this one particular book, took a look at the cover, read a little bit of the binder of the book, and it really kind of jumped out at me. And I bought the book, and I already started reading it. So I wanted to share it with everyone here. The name of the book, I'll hold it up here. The name of the book is called Whatever It Took, and I'm not being paid any compensation to plug this book. The author of the book is Henry. I'll probably butcher his last name, unfortunately. Henry Langrier. And Henry Langrier, perhaps, I didn't do any research on this, but he has to be one of the oldest surviving combat veterans of World War II. Yeah. He fought on D-Day. He landed in France on D-Day, was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne. And he tells his story of his introduction to the military,
Sure,
into the Army, and then his quick advance through training, and then his ascension on France on D-Day, and then within weeks he had been unfortunately captured, and I don't want to. I haven't read the entire book.
Yeah, let's give away the whole book.
Yeah. So, but I have there's a trailer. There's a trailer that I found on YouTube, and it's phenomenal. So I want to play that trailer, Austin, if we could.
In the death camp, they're probably going to work us to death. So we was either going to die working in the mines or escaping. It was a rainy, cold night, and a friend of mine that we have been talking about to escape said, "Let's go." So we stepped out into the brush and took off. I never felt I had any option but to survive. I just knew I had to do whatever it took.
Goosebumps, huh?
So are we going to have like our own little book club? Like after you're done reading that, I want to read
Exactly.
it. I mean, and so I'm not a huge history buff, but I every time I sit down on Netflix and you go through half an hour of trying to find something to watch, I usually, defer
Land
to
on a history.
like historic type, movies, whether it's Saving Private Ryan or something that's, documentary based about World War II. I mean, that is the last greatest generation.
Yep.
And I don't know what's the number, like under 100 of those World
what
War II veterans that are still alive.
Yeah,
today.
and that's what I'm thinking. So when I picked up this book and I read the jacket of the book, and it mentioned that he wrote this book a year ago. So that immediately kind of captured my attention, because I'm, doing the mental math thinking, so he wrote this book when he was what, 95?
Right.
And then sure enough, that's what it is. He was 95 when he wrote this book.
You look great for 95.
Yeah, and he starts off, and again, you mentioned the book club. Maybe I'll sit here and read the entire book to you. You'll probably fall asleep. It'll be like our bedtime story.
There you
But
go.
what I do want to do, though, over as all my followers and listeners know, I do my podcast weekly. But I am going to, read this book. I've already read a couple chapters of it, and I do want to kind of chronicle the book throughout the weeks. Just kind of tease the book a little bit, read some small excerpts from it. But
I mean, you know what? I mean, again, I'm not a history buff, but I've never heard this veteran story before.
yeah, exactly.
So the fact that
It was-
it's documented, in a
Yeah.
book now. I mean,
just a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, not that I'd prefer movies over books, but I mean, I wonder if they'd make a movie out of it, right? Because I don't think that this has a documented, full length movie.
It would make a phenomenal movie. So
I'd watch it.
I just want to read a quick excerpt from the prologue here. He's talking about his training with the 82nd Airborne before he was deployed. His words, I learned how to navigate in the dark using stars and dead reckoning. I learned how to survive behind enemy lines where everyone wants you dead or worse. Or worse, right? Worse than dead.
Right.
Torture, right?
Yeah.
As I imagine what he's
pretty much.
referring to.
Yep.
I learned how to kill and how not to look too deeply into the eyes of the man you shot for fear of seeing your reflection.
Yeah.
I learned how to become a savage. I learned how very dark a man's soul can become when he wills himself to survive. And then he just quickly goes on to say, under other circumstances, maybe I could have been friends with some of the people I had to shoot, but I'd been in a place where I had no friends and where everyone I met carried my death sentence, no matter how kind their glance seemed. So I apologize. I said that this was him taking us through his training. This was him doing kind of a global recapture of his about a year and a half that he spent overseas. So
sounds like a great book.
Yeah, I'm excited to continue to read it. Like I said, I already read a couple chapters, and I've actually already read the first couple chapters multiple times because I wanted to actually read this to my teenage children. I wanted to have them kind of follow along. So the first night only one joined me. And the second night I was able to get two more to join me. So I had to go back and read it.
Meanwhile,
again.
your wife is like, the first chapter I got.
Yeah. So I already have the first two chapters completely memorized. To your point about actually having the book and, dog earing it and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no, that, I mean, you know what? And again, I mean, think about it. If he's 95, there aren't many of that generation left who went through, the D-Day, the 82nd Airborne, he
talked about when he was 19 and he had just graduated from high school and he had his first job and he met his first girlfriend and he was living his life. And at the time he was aware, of course, of what was going on over in Europe. But as a 19-year-old, you're like, whatever, that's overseas, right? That's just a war that, there had been World War I, right?
Right.
The Civil War wasn't that far in the rearview mirror.
Seriously.
Of Americans at the time. But then January 7th, 1941 occurs. And all of a sudden he, as he described it, that's what got the attention of the 17, 18, and 19-year-olds of the time.
Right.
That's when it became real that, oh my God, our homeland has been struck. And as he chronicles, he said at that moment, he knew he was going to be drafted.
Yeah.
And so what he did was he actually sought out the military at that point because he wanted to pick his branch. He wanted to pick his trade, so to speak, because he knew he was going to get pulled in. So he chose the Army, and he chose to go through the paratrooper training, and he ended up in the 82nd Airborne, which is, it's about as famous as it gets in the military, right?
Cool.
In the U.S. military.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's that.
The We the Podcast People Book Club.
That's right.
I'll bring my book next week.
Get on board.
Yeah. Right.
Get on board.
Get on board or get out of town.
Exactly. Or be left behind.
Oh, look at that. It says somebody said that he was honored a couple years ago in DC by Trump.
Oh, imagine that.
Oh, thanks.
Oh,
is that your sister?
Yeah, that's
hey,
my
Michelle.
sister, Michelle. Yep. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that. So that's great.
Yeah, that'd be a cool book. Cool read.
It's not a shocker that Trump was the one that honored him, though, right? So now we talked about last week on the podcast, on the God Freedom podcast here. And again, thank you everyone for joining me here. We're on the We the People podcast network. I have a guest in studio. I don't often have a guest in the studio. In fact, I've only done it a couple times. So
I'm honored to be a guest.
Yeah. So Dave Calus is here, and you all know who Dave is by now. I'm sure Dave was assaulted at the Webster Board of Education meeting. We're going to get to what's going on with his matter momentarily. But last week, hot off the presses was the Senate hearings for Ketanji Brown
Jackson.
Thank you. KBJ, right? They're already,
She's
going
already
with the
got
whole
her Supreme Court acronym.
Acronym, exactly. So the RBG, right? The Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah.
So they're already,
Nobody could ever replace her, by the way.
Yeah.
Just saying.
They're already parroting her. So I'm sure by now most of you have seen the clip of the soon-to-be United States Supreme Court, newest United States Supreme Court member, who declared in her own words that she could not define what a woman was because she's not a biologist. So today on Facebook, something popped up on my feed, and it really brought me back quickly to a week ago and listening to our Supreme Court nominee. And Austin has put that up on the screen there. So what this appears to be is somebody's online college application. And yeah, laugh. Go ahead and laugh, because I'm not sure what else we can do other than cry or find a new country to live in, or both. But after you select your sex, okay, so these people are smart, right? They're already anticipating our arguments against this. So they're not specifically replacing a designation of what sex you are. The drop box above the cursor there, you can see female has been selected. So presumably that drop down box also contains male. And presumably, because we all learned this at a very young age, there are two sexes or two genders, and those are, and Dave, again, I'm going to put you on the spot. Those are male. I'm even going to give you one of them. They are male, and then the other one's on the screen, so I'm really giving it away. Austin, can you help him out, please?
Yeah, come on, Dave. It's demigender.
Male and female.
Male and female. Ding, ding, ding.
But now that's not apparently good enough for the college crowd, so to speak, anymore. So the perverts that are running our colleges and universities apparently have now saw fit to create a second designation, I guess, and it's called a gender designation. And we're going to get to the different gender designations apparently. But what I'm confused about though is, and we're not going to get any help from the Supreme Court because they don't know how to define these things apparently, but what is the definition of gender? So we looked it up. Austin, can you throw that up on the screen real quick? The definition of gender. This is Webster's definition. I highlighted it. The state of being male or female. Okay. That's the same thing, right? So we go back to sex. That's male or female. We all knew that. We go to gender, that's male or female. We all knew that. But apparently we're wrong, because apparently your gender designation is agender. Does anyone know what that is?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. Agender.
It means without gender, right? I assume, because
Well, how do you know you're without gender if you're without gender?
The prefix a means without, so that's what that means
Austin with
technically.
the big brain over there.
That's why he's our
Good for
producer.
you, man.
But I don't know what that means in terms of gender.
How can you be agender? Isn't that an oxymoron in a way?
I
It's the
assume they're just
state-
like a Ken doll
A Ken doll.
or like a Barbie doll. You know, they have like nothing.
Barbie is not agender.
But it, like,
I
you know,
spent many
look,
days
like,
as
you know,
a 12-year-old.
if
examining and
you've seen a
determining that she
naked
was-
Barbie,
The equivalent of
they have no like.
But isn't
There's
that-
nothing there.
Wouldn't that be non?
My stepsister allowed me to join in when she played Barbies, and I saw Barbie and Ken. They weren't agender.
Well,
Well, down below they were, though.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying.
Below the waist,
Ken didn't have a
yeah.
little plastic,
That's true.
ding dong.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't
I blew-
understand.
I
I
blew
don't. I
that
shouldn't
one.
say I understand. I don't know what agender is. So all this is like
So this
new to me.
the second one is androgen.
Androgen.
Androgyny.
Okay,
Androgyny?
so can I ask a question?
Isn't that what
real
Mark
quick?
McGuire and Sammy Sosa were on back in 1999?
Yeah, the steroids. What was that? What was it? I thought it was anabolic. But it might have been.
No,
But
it
wait,
was androgyny.
If we go back to like the whole L,
do we know what that is?
I have no idea. So I mean, we're talking about the LGBTQIA plus.
What's IA plus?
So I think that's what
Is
I'm.
that something new?
Intersex.
Intersex and I think that
Asexual.
A is asexual, and then the plus is figuring it out.
Yeah, everything else.
We shouldn't be talking about this. I mean, we can go through the rest of this list, but I'm certainly no expert in this. But what I guess my question was, if you're taking a look at this list, where's lesbian? I mean, if the whole LGBTQIA plus movement,
They're not on there.
right?
Demigender.
Well, sexual. Can I actually
Male
can
and
I
female are on
Can
there,
I
I just
segue what
noticed.
Dave just said into something I've thought for a little while?
Yes. Well, it's your show. Sorry.
Sorry, Chad. Can I interject here for a second?
What? I don't know. If you have any other questions, just ask Dave.
I just
But
Please do.
so what Dave just said was
I'm not
like
selfish.
lesbian and gay aren't on here. Because those aren't genders, those are sexual preferences, right?
okay.
Well, then why
like-
isn't that a category?
Oh, because that's
There's not enough room on the form.
because that's not like a gender. You're not. I'm not gay gender, right? Like that. I guess would. And I'm not gay at all. But
Well, I was going to ask you that next.
but like,
I see what you're saying.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I always
Fair enough.
found it kind like if I was just like a gay guy, I feel like I would be kind of annoyed that all these other things are being lumped in.
Yes.
What does this
With
have to do with
that.
going to college? I don't get it. I just don't get
That
it.
is
That's the real
$1,000,000
question.
It
Yeah.
really is. Because at the end of the day, what do they do with this information anyway?
Exactly.
If I'm a male, but and my gender selection is gender fluid, I mean, what do they do with that? You know what? What do they do with it?
I don't want to see
So they
anyone's
can
gender
report
fluids.
that there's a. I don't know. I think let's.
There's frat parties
I
and
should
things like
digress
that.
quickly. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the frat parties,
All right.
fluid wise.
So
That's an interesting list, though. I mean, when I looked at that, I was like, "What in the world?"
we're gonna go from
Gender.
We're gonna go from non-binary agender right over to Kyrie Irving.
Let's do that. Good segue.
Yeah. So
it's
So
mo-
as many of you may know, Kyrie Irving was one of the famous people, so to speak. Dave and I aren't famous, although we tried. Kyrie Irving, who plays for, I don't even know, the New Jersey Nets, maybe?
Nets.
Yeah, I think it's the Nets. Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays for the New Jersey Nets. And because of New York's ridiculous vaccine, COVID mandates, etc., he wasn't allowed to play in any home games up until recently when the mayor gave him permission to earn a living in the United States of America. But Kyrie Irving was interviewed, and I want to play a little clip from his interview. First off, I want to thank Kyrie Irving because he gives a phenomenal plug to the Got Freedom podcast. So let's start with with Kyrie Irving plugging the Got Freedom podcast.
I'm standing for freedom.
Let's play it again.
beautiful.
I'm standing for freedom.
He says, "I got freedom," right?
I think he said.
He said,
Chad,
"I got the
Chad
got-"
Hummel stands for freedom.
He said, "I watched the Got Freedom podcast." Right? Let's play one more time.
I'm standing for freedom.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. All right, let's play the whole clip.
Yeah.
Of this season for me was never to just take a stand. It was really to make sure that I'm standing on what I believe in and freedom. Freedom. I don't think that's a word that gets defined enough in our society.
Stop right there
about
for
the
a
freedom to
second.
make choices.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love Kyrie Irving. I didn't like him when he was a Celtic. I thought he was a lousy basketball player, and he didn't, live up to his expectations as a basketball player when he was with my Celtics. But, and you know what? I don't want to be a hypocrite either, because one of the things that I've probably said one too many times, in my political rants in life has been that, I don't really care what Hollywood says about politics. I don't really care about what athletes say about politics. And, I didn't want to hear from Colin Kaepernick on his politics and all that. So one might say, well, now all of a sudden you want to prop up Kyrie Irving because he agrees with you. And so I thought that through a little bit. These things aren't lost on me completely, but because I'm an attorney and I can speak out of six sides of the same mouth, I want to say this, and I do think this is accurate and true. Kyrie Irving isn't just coming out on his own, so to speak, and deciding to talk politics at a press conference. Kyrie Irving's not just calling for a press conference, grabbing a mic and saying, hey, I believe in freedom and COVID, mandates are bad and so on and so forth. That's not what Kyrie Irving is doing. Kyrie Irving was attacked by these mandates.
Mm-hmm.
Kyrie Irving's freedom was attacked. He lost, I believe he was not paid for those home games that he missed. He did take a stand for freedom. And when he says he took a stand for freedom, I believe him. He didn't say I took a stand for myself. When he says I took a stand for freedom, what he's saying is he took a stand for you and I in Austin and everyone that's watching this podcast right now, the God Freedom podcast.
Yeah.
And that's in fact, again, what he did.
Right.
He has the bully pulpit. He has the microphone that, he didn't pay for that microphone. That's a press conference that the whole world is listening to and watching. So, good for him.
Yeah.
I'm glad that somebody like him also, stood for freedom during this period of time. What's unfortunate, and we've dealt with this, Dave, throughout the course of all of our dealings and what we've had to go through, both in your case individually, my case individually, and all of the other patriots that we've met along the way that have gone through the same things that you and I have gone through, where we've come under attack. Kyrie Irving, he had something to lose.
He totally does.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, he could have lost his entire career over this.
Right.
What if some other states had the same policy? He wouldn't have been able to play anywhere.
Right.
And one of the struggles that you and I have run into all along is if more people would stand arm in arm with what we're doing, then you can make a bigger stink, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
If his entire team had gotten in lockstep with what he was doing and said, we're not going to play, and other members of the NBA said, we're not going to play, this would have ended real quick.
Yeah.
At least this particular mandate.
Yeah.
There is no way that the powers to be, the people that are making billions of dollars off of the NBA, whether it be the TV networks, whether it be the vendors, whether it be the ads, the people that pump, millions and billions of dollars into ads and whatnot. They wouldn't have stood for this ridiculous mandate if other people had, had Kyrie Irving's back.
Right.
But it was just him and maybe a couple other one-off players that, that took the stand and so they had to suffer, but they did the right thing.
Didn't it come down to a state issue, a New York issue, because he was allowed to play in away games?
Correct.
And he just was not allowed to play in New York State because of the New York State guidelines, rules, whatever we're calling them now. And it's because of those rules that he had to sit out. However, he could attend the games. Like he could be there in the stadium, unvaccinated, no masks, because, apparently Eric Adams said now you could go to, entertainment, type venues without having to wear a mask. So he was allowed to be there without a mask on. He was allowed to be there without, being vaccinated.
But he couldn't play.
But he couldn't play, which is complete nonsense.
Hence, and of course, we've chronicled since day one, right, all the way back to March of 2020, how ridiculously inopposite the regulations are and how none of them are designed for safety. They're all designed for punishment and control.
And they're not based in real science.
Yes.
They're not, it's Fauci. It's Fauciism. Right?
Exactly.
It's Fauci science.
So what they did to him, what you just articulated, what they did to him cannot be classified as anything other than pure punishment.
Right.
He was punished.
Correct.
Pure and simple.
Correct.
It was not, oh my God, don't come inside this building because you are going to spread COVID and get everyone sick and everyone's going to die.
Right.
It's, you can come in the building and you can watch your teammates play.
Right.
And you can watch them win and lose, but you're not going to play because you didn't submit to the vaccine.
Right. And he made a choice. Right. And you and I talk about this all the time. Like that's everything that you and I have been, talking about and fighting for individually, was the freedom to have the choice, right?
Correct.
So the NBA,
not that others can't get the vax if they want, not that others can't wear 3 masks while they're driving alone in a car if they want.
Exactly. He made a choice. He stood in his truth, and he was representing, not only himself, but he's representing the freedom to have those choices.
Absolutely.
And we should all have that.
Absolutely.
We should all have that.
So, all right. Today is the day of segues. Some of them have been terrible. Hopefully this one will be better. This segue is going to take us directly to the gentleman
Oh,
who's in the room.
I
Dave
think it's a
Calus,
great
right?
segue. Yeah,
It's got to be. We're going to talk about you.
I think if people hang in there for a couple minutes, they'll see the segue, which was great because as soon as you started talking about it, I'm like, oh, this will be great. This shows that we're actually doing a little bit of prep work. So really quick, the backstory about what I'm about to say started Wednesday of last week. My son plays JV lacrosse at Webster. They played in the rain Wednesday night. He didn't feel great on Thursday. Friday morning, he woke up. He didn't feel, any better. So his mom decided to test him for COVID. And the first test that he took, he ended up testing positive. So she thought she was doing the right thing by notifying the school. Carter has COVID, and I'm saying he has COVID because that's what the test said, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, he has to follow the existing guidelines for COVID, in the
ever-changing protocols,
which
that they
is
send out.
insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just dumb at this point, in my opinion. So the first 5 days he has to stay home, isolation. Day 6, he can return to school, and days 6 through 10, he can be in classrooms with a mask on. Additionally, if he's in sports, he cannot play until day 10.
You can be in school from day 6 to 10.
Correct. With a mask on, in the classrooms, around other kids,
Indoors.
indoors. But he cannot play outdoor sports or sports in general. I don't know if there's an indoor ping pong league at the school at this point, but he can't go outdoors and play lacrosse until after day 10.
So I didn't even realize what a great segue that actually was, because I didn't know you were going to jump right into that. So this is what we just got done saying. Kyrie Irving, an athlete, was being punished.
Correct.
Plain and simple, he was being punished.
Correct.
Your son, plain and simple, and maybe not directly, right? He's not being punished because he's your son, or who knows, maybe he is. I know my son was because he's my son.
Yeah.
But he's being punished because of some ridiculous, non-scientific policies and rules.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
We've graduated. Luckily, we've graduated away from the mandates.
Right.
Now there are policies and rules that the schools have to follow.
Right.
So
Now,
did you look into this?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, I looked into it. So I'm like, okay,
That was a softball day.
Yeah, thank you. He was. He's going to be okay days 6 through 10 wearing a mask. He'll get through, right? And realistically, it's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week with a mask to comply with whatever these new guidelines are. So I contacted the nurse and said, why is he allowed to be indoors with a mask but not play outdoor sports until the 10th day? She said, because that's what we're, those are the rules.
That's what we're being told to do.
That's what we're being told to do. She goes, if you like,
we do whatever we're told.
Yeah. She goes, if you like, I can contact the athletic director for you. I'm like,
Oh,
no,
of course.
I'm like, I know, I know Steve pretty well. I'll contact him directly.
Have you noticed? I picked up on this months ago because my interactions with my school's athletic department, for obvious reasons that everyone knows about, really ticked up over the past year and a half. But have you noticed what the new title is?
Oh, yeah.
That our athletic directors are carrying around?
I'm
what
glad
is
you
it?
mentioned it. Director of Health, something in athletics.
Yeah. Yeah. They're directors of health now?
Yeah.
What gives them?
What's
their expertise?
Yeah. Listen, what does he have an education in health? I have more education in health and nutrition than he does. I guarantee it.
It's
like, let's sit down and talk about it. I guarantee it.
You know what the answer is, right?
He has none.
Yeah, but what do we need to follow here?
The money.
The money.
Yeah.
They got the COVID money.
Yeah.
So this is what happens, right? The truck showed up at some point about 18 months ago, right? A big dump truck showed up at all the high school campuses in Monroe County.
Yeah.
And dumped, anywhere from $4 to $12 million in cash.
Webster got 14 million.
14 million.
14 million.
So two dump trucks showed up to Webster and dumped $14 million of cash in the gymnasium.
Yep.
Okay. And the superintendent and the Board of Education all gathered in the gymnasium, right? And they were like, wow,
look at this.
Look at all this cash.
Yeah.
It was like when Obama gave all that cash to the Iranians, right?
Yeah.
So they get all this cash. And now what are they going to do with it?
Right.
All right. So bring in the athletic director.
And they have to use it.
Yes,
It's not like
they have to
can,
use it.
It's not like they can put it in savings and accrue interest, so they can, lower our taxes.
I was going to say, it's not like they can lower
No.
tax rates
No.
for the next 10 years and collect that much less money
Correct.
on the tax levy for the school bill for the next 10 years.
Correct.
No. It's like, come on in, athletic director. You're going to be the director of health now.
Correct.
And with that comes an $18,000 stipend.
Right.
And nurse come in, right?
Yep.
Now you're going to be such and such, and you're going to be such and such, and
Yep.
you're all going to get a stipend.
Director of health. And I forgot there's
Which
one
is
other,
why we have
there's one other
inflation
role.
right
It's
now, by
director
the
of
way.
health something in athletics was his title.
Yeah.
So
I
of
saw the
course-
title on the email you sent me, which
Yeah.
was a little bit different. See, my athletic director, it just simply says athletic director and director of health.
Okay, so
yours
it's-
defined it more further.
Yeah. So that's just like the nomenclature is a little bit different.
Yeah, but it's
different
all
per
the
district.
same.
Yeah, it's all the same.
They're spending money.
Yeah. So I contacted him. I said, I'm interested in understanding your policy. If he can return to school on day 6 with masks, but he can't play sports until day 10, can you help me understand that? And he directed me to what he called the Finger Lakes COVID Task Force. So of course I'm looking it up online, right? And I'm looking
Task
for
force. It's gotta be something
COVID-19.
important.
So Finger Lakes COVID-19 Task Force. So I was looking and looking and looking, and I couldn't find anything except the Finger Lakes COVID-19 Vaccination Task Force. That's the one that he's referring
Ooh,
to.
vaccination task
Correct.
force.
So that's the group that our districts are taking guidance from, in addition to our local county leaders, Adam Bello and Dr. Mike Mendoza.
Oh, we don't call him Dr. Mike Mendoza on this show.
I'm sorry,
Dave.
double dipping Mikey Mendonuts.
Yes.
Mendonuts. So I'm trying to understand, and I wasn't going to go back. Actually, I did. I'm sorry. That's a lie. I ended up emailing him back and I said, so to be clear, the district, the school, Webster, is taking guidance from the Finger Lakes COVID-19 Vaccination Task Force. And I had a couple other questions for him and he hasn't responded yet.
So now back to the fact that he now carries the nomenclature, as you said. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good.
That's a good word.
The nomenclature of director of health.
Right.
So that takes us back to this idea of, just like I've asked repeatedly throughout COVID of a superintendent, for example, who constantly says my hands are tied.
Right.
And by the way, superintendents have said their hands are tied about things even long before COVID.
Correct.
Their hands are always tied.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Their hands are always tied, except for when their paycheck shows up every 2 weeks.
Right.
And they make $250,000 a year with, all in with their benefits and their clothing and car allowances
Right.
and things like that.
Right.
So their hands are never tied when they dip their money in and dip their hands in and take the money.
Right.
But when it comes time to make a damn decision, as essentially the president of the high school, right? They're the CEO.
Yep.
They're the self-proclaimed CEO of their individual schools, not just the high school.
Buck stops with them.
Yeah. And they can never make a decision.
And you will agree, would you agree that
Yeah, you're not going to
the
put any words
district-
in my mouth.
would you
Right? You're a lawyer,
objection.
right? Leading.
I strenuously object.
Rephrase your
Would
question.
you agree that your district, even though it's in Monroe County, is different than mine? And each superintendent
Yes, mine's
is this okay? I went to
Just
yours.
kidding.
I'm an alum.
They're both terrible.
You know what I'm saying though? Like they
Yes.
have superintendents for each district.
And
for
what's
a
the point
reason.
of having one if they all have to follow the same guidance from
And
somebody else?
Exactly. And why can they not make unilateral decisions that are in the best
Correct.
interest for their students, staff,
Correct.
teachers, right? So
Correct.
maybe my superintendent makes a decision for Webster, which
That's right.
could be different than the superintendent for Eastridge making a decision for, but they're not.
Nope.
They're not.
Nope.
And this leads into, and
and that puts the spotlight squarely on this whole idea of what in the hell is a director of health title for an athletic director?
Right.
Right.
correct.
If you're the athletic director and now you somehow obtain the gold star to be the director of health, then presumably, even though we know they don't, presumably they have some sort of training and expertise in the health of our children, so that when you go to them and say, now please explain to me then why you're making this policy. Well, I have no idea why.
Right.
I'm just being told what to do. Well, then why do we need you to be the director of health?
Right.
Then let's have the COVID task force from the Finger Lakes come in and take the money.
Right.
No, they're all taking money just
Yep.
from different troughs.
Yep.
So we got the COVID vaccination policy, the COVID vaccination team of the Finger Lakes. They have a trough of money that they're working out of.
Right.
We have the director of health at all the individual high schools. And like you just showed us, each one of those directors of health, my athletic director, Kyle Vacanti, who I'm suing, by the way, my athletic director, Kyle Vacanti, he's also the director of health in East Irondequoit.
Yeah.
And he's doing the exact same thing that the director of health in Webster's doing.
Right.
And neither one of them know what the hell they're doing.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
just taking emails and marching orders.
They're doing their job. That's what
They're just doing what they're told.
They're doing what I'm told.
Like the
I'm doing my
SS,
job.
like the German
Exactly.
SS.
Right. So as I'm like like boiling and my wheels are spinning.
Are we
after
supposed to
this
be
conversation.
fundraising or something?
Yes,
right, we'll get to that in
we're
a
totally
minute.
getting there. I know people are like this is getting too old and boring.
Somebody's going to
So-
show up with a dump truck of money here, maybe.
Let's hope, right? Because here's the thing: I'm thinking about it from my perspective, and I hate to I hate to focus on.
I know
it.
you're
Honest
not
to God.
framing it like that. It's just it is what it is.
Right.
You're in it. You're
right.
in it now.
I'm in this thing with Webster because I was forcibly removed. It's a harassment case. There's a criminal case about it. But as a parent, I'm trying to figure out who do I go to after talking to the athletic director and asking them where they're getting their guidance from. And they say that it's coming from this Finger Lakes COVID-19 vaccination task group. Well, what gives them the right to make a decision for my kid's health? And I don't have a voice and a choice, right? So all these things combined, in your case, and Shannon Joy in Fairport, and you're representing some other folks in Hilton, right? I mean, so individually, we're all fighting this ginormous David versus Goliath battle, right? Where we cannot make any changes as parents, as individual parents.
No, our voice is useless.
Right, it's useless.
Individual.
And even if we wanted to make the changes, we would have to use the legal system to do so, right? Go through the last 2 years to get information out of the district. We had to FOIA, the information. 9 times out of 10, those FOIAs are being ignored.
Yep.
If people don't know how to FOIA, I mean, do we use a lawyer for it or not? In your case, you needed a lawyer, or I mean, you didn't need one, but it was
it was certainly recommended.
Recommended that you
so to
use a
speak.
lawyer to help defend your case against the district.
And
because of
honestly, I don't think I would have won it without him.
without a lawyer,
Yeah.
right? So in my case, I mean, I'm not going to go and defend myself, or represent myself when the defendant Ken Mancini goes, to court. I'm like, I'm going to need a lawyer. So every parent in every district in Monroe County at some point has had some frustration with their districts where they end up hitting a wall because the school superintendent, whoever it is, they can't do anything about it. My hands are tied. That's exactly what I've been told by the superintendent in our district.
Yeah.
My hands are tied.
Dozens of times.
So who does the buck stop with then? You've got to go to Monroe County, and then you start fighting the Monroe County Department of Health, and then you start fighting the Monroe County Executive Adam Bello, and then their organizations, right?
Yep.
So you're going to need legal advice, legal representation, investigation.
And then what does Bello say? Bello points to Albany.
Right.
And then
Okay.
Albany points
Bingo.
to the Fed.
Bingo.
Everybody's always passing the buck up the
Right.
chain.
And therefore parents cannot get anything done. And at the end of the day, right, all we want is the best health, safety, and education for our kids. And that's what our districts tell us. But do they really have their best interest in mind when there's
No.
money on the
They're
table?
just spending
Again,
money.
the COVID relief, I forgot what it's called, the ESSER dollars, the ARP and ESSER dollars for Webster, the CARES money, right? $14 million in Webster, which is making them make decisions to make sure that they can continue to get that money because
Yep.
the third chunk hasn't been released yet. So they have to provide numbers and data and metrics. So the end of the day, this is what I realized I would want. If there was an organization in Monroe County that I could go to and say, this is a situation that I have in my public school. Can you help me? And there isn't one. There isn't an advocacy group in Monroe County for parents to say, I have a situation with my child at school. I'm going to need some assistance, including legal advice and possibly legal representation. Maybe, we're going to require some investigative, backgrounds on, the situation. So there's no advocacy group. So I decided with your
Wait, what's wrong with the boards of education?
the Board of Education.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's all right. I had to hold my tongue. So, through conversations with you and a couple other people in Webster, I'm starting a crowdfunding effort, a fundraising campaign. It's called David versus Goliath. The money that we're going to be raising.
Look at those two good
Look
looking
at those two guys.
Right before going on Hannity.
the money raised is going to be used for just that purpose that I had mentioned, to create an organization that in Monroe County that parents can go to say, this is a situation that I'm dealing with. The school says they're advocating for my children, but they're not. I can't make any, positive changes, for the personal growth and development of my child because the school is beholden to
the money,
the unions, the county, the state, right? I'm like, it just seems like every time you think about, well, who do I have to go to have the conversation? It just piles on all these organizations. And then you're looking at like a 50-foot mountain
bureaucracy
as an
at its
individual.
finest.
And you're like, Well, now, I mean, I can't win, right? So the people and parents give up, and I refuse to lose because the odds are stacked against us. I don't like it. So I'm putting together this fundraiser. I'm still looking at national organizations that that we could align with, and there's a bunch of them out there. I haven't really found anything that's in line with what what we're talking about. There's a lot of faith-based ones. There's a lot of other organizations that look like they get funding from schools, but I realistically want this to be a standalone Monroe County an official 501c3 not-for-profit.
It's a good point about it being a complete independent standalone.
Right.
Right. You
Right,
can't have the school district involved.
No, we can't get money from a school district
No.
because then we're beholden to, to where that money is coming from. And they'll probably want somebody on the board to
Yep.
dictate what the money is used for, in terms of program development, right? Can't get
course.
money from the state, right? Because then they're going to do the same thing. And, if there's a corporate interest, that wants to fund, I mean, we would need to have conversations about what they would want the money used for. For
Yep.
sake of argument, if Tom Golisano said, yeah, I'll give you $1 million for this organization.
But
Right. He's going to
Yeah.
want somebody on the board of directors to make sure the money is being used in his vision
Yep.
of what he wants the organization to do.
yeah,
Um,
we don't want any pills poisoning the well, so to speak.
right. Exactly. So that's the idea behind this fundraiser. It is a legit crowdfunding fundraiser. It's on Fundly. Now, we talked about using GoFundMe, which had a lot of chatter behind it. We were going to look
They
at
stole all the truckers' money
Yeah.
in Canada.
exactly, and then we looked at Give Send Go, which the truckers also used, but was hacked. So we decided not to use that because it might have people might not have wanted to donate for fear of their information being stolen, right?
Mhm.
And we don't want that. So we're using Fundly. The crowdfunding site is up on the screen right now. David versus Goliath. I understand 100% that there's a lot going on in the world today, right? People are, giving money and gifts in kind, to Ukraine. So they might not have the capacity to give. People are, out of work. Inflation is high. Gas prices are
Gave
high.
up their jobs because of these things we're talking
Exactly. And I guess if anybody is still listening at this point, what I want to say is the money is not
about. This
going.
is the #1 podcast on the We the People podcast
Oh,
network.
It's fantastic.
There are at least 9 people watching right now.
Well, hello to all 9 of you people who are still listening. But at the end of the day, I keep saying that. That's like a catchphrase for me.
I
At the
say
end
that
of
a
the
lot
day,
too.
the money does not go in my pocket. The money is attached to a bank account, and the money will be held in trust, right?
That's correct.
So once we collectively, whoever the we are, myself, if you're involved, if there's 2 other people that are helping stand this up, whoever we decide to align with, if it's a national organization, we'll make sure that the money is used properly. If not, we're going to have to create and stand up this 501c3 not-for-profit ourselves
Mhm.
for Monroe County, in Monroe County, funded by money from Monroe County or any people that are associated outside of
And,
our affiliations.
and so now, as a practical matter, I'm a parent, and let's say I go to my son's baseball game and I don't have a mask on, and I get arrested, and I can't afford an attorney, or it's not even a question of can I afford an attorney. I just don't know what to do. I got arrested. I think I was wronged, and I hear about your organization, and I contact your organization, and how are you going to steer me? What is it that you're going to say to me? or help me with?
Ideally, I mean, and again, this is still, it's still, it's like baking a cake, right? We're still in, putting all the ingredients in a bowl phase and mixing everything together before it's baked in the oven. So ideally, the concept would work where that parent could call or contact through a website and say, this is my situation. Can somebody help me? A representative would reach back out to that parent, listen to the situation, and then decide, is this something that we should get a legal representative involved, or direct them to resources, right? Is it an FAQ? Is it a knowledge base? I mean, those are older, type of information type databases, but we want to be able to provide that parent with a next step,
A place to go. Exactly.
a place to go,
Yeah.
right? And if it is something that warrants legal action, there will be funds that
To try
can
to hook
help
them
this
up with
parent.
somebody.
Correct. So they don't have to rely on a public defender who may be less interested in the trespass case,
Mhm.
right? And more interested in advancing that lawyer's own career, through whatever, through whatever, media sources. So we want to be able to provide some of that financial support as well. So again, all the money that's raised will, one, be used in the development and creation, right? I mean, there's legal paperwork that needs to be filed to make sure it's a 501c3 not-for-profit. We're going to need advisors on the board, and again, they're not paid, but there's paperwork. I created a not-for-profit once in 2013. So I mean, it's not just something where we just go and fill out something with the county, and all of a sudden, hey, you've got your not-for-profit certificate.
I've created about 3 or 4 not-for-profits. All 3 of my businesses are not-for-profit.
Right.
They don't make any money.
Yeah. So I think today is the day that we're getting the message out, right? So I mean, the announcement is official. We're creating.
Yeah. So now, is this a link on here, or do you have a link that we can just throw out there verbally?
Yeah, I mean, it's well, you know what? We should be able to share it on Facebook if I go into the actual portal itself and then hit that share on Facebook thing. But maybe, I mean, can Austin?
I will
share it?
make sure the link is in the description after the episode is
Fantastic.
done.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So if somebody finds it on the episode, there'll be a hyperlink where they can click on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one after, right as soon as we're not live, I'll add that to
Okay.
the description.
Gotcha. And
And
if they can't access it that way, if you were telling me right now how to access it, how would I access it? You would tell me to go to fundly.com.
Fundly.com / and I can't read the fine print. Help David beat Goliath, and there's spaces or dashes in between. So help David beat Goliath.
Gotcha. And I'm not familiar with this particular platform, but I imagine if somebody goes to fundly.com, there's probably some sort of easy search tool.
Yes,
Or if they typed in David versus Goliath, it would probably
Correct.
lead them to this particular fundraiser.
Correct. So it would be fundly.com. And then, like you said, you could go into a search bar and throw in David versus Goliath or help David beat Goliath. We had a little naming change recently. So
Awesome.
on the campaign itself.
And where did you get the David versus Goliath from?
So, I mean, it really does. I woke up one morning and I'm like, after we did all those interviews on Fox and Friends and Hannity and I was looking at,
It was a busy weekend, wasn't it?
well, it was a busy week, but I mean, thinking about the criminal case itself, and then, the impact and the connection that the district could have, to all of that, and any civil case that comes out of that. I'm like, this is an absolute uphill, ginormous mountain that I'm going to have to climb. And it just literally came to me. It was like David versus Goliath. And then I'm thinking to myself, what if people don't have good friends like Chad Hummel who can represent them and, help them with their legal case, right? They're going to need advocacy groups like this, that they can say, hey, this is the situation, with, my son or daughter's education, right? I mean, let's really say, he or she's not getting the attention in the classroom, and they're pulling the funding away from him for special services in school. That's another reason why a parent would need an advocacy group to fight for their child to get those additional resources.
That's a great point.
Right.
And here's the thing too. The one thing that kind of occurs to me is that, and we talked about this a little bit before, the school district has millions of dollars at their disposal to fight us, right? So
Yes.
if we go to the school district with a problem, and forget about even whether we're right or wrong, but let's assume for a minute we're right about whatever it is, the problem that we have. We're still going to get the our hands are tied response.
Right.
Okay. And then if we bring some sort of action, when I say we, I'm talking about any individual parent out there or family out there. If you want to bring some sort of action against your school district because you believe that you have a cause of action and the school district won't help you or do anything about it, the school district and all of the staff, they're paid one way or the other, right? They're paid one way or the other, whether or not you get the relief you're looking for. And they're going to hire big law firms with your money.
Right.
With your tax dollars.
Right, they have retained legal firms. And I found that out, through my case.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a retained legal firm.
Yep. I've mentioned the law firm many times.
Yeah.
Ferrara and Fiorenza
Right.
out of Syracuse represents multiple school districts in Monroe County, and Harris Beach, which is a local law firm here in Rochester, represents, the other half, so to
Right.
speak.
Right.
So they have lawyers on retainer. And at the end of the day, they don't really care what the outcome of the matter is because their job is secure.
Correct.
Either way.
Right.
But you as the parent who either has been arrested or has been assaulted or who just can't get what it is that your son or daughter is entitled to, you have to make a decision when you wake up on any given morning. Do I stand down or do I fight forward?
Right.
Because in order to fight forward, you have to go hire a lawyer
Sure.
potentially. You have to take all of your time and energy away from the things that you are otherwise obligated to devote your time and energy to, your own job
Right.
and your family. See, you have to divert all of your energy and resources away from the things that you would be doing to fight your battle.
And
The school
becoming an
district-
expert.
Yeah, and
Right?
become an expert in it. The school district just goes to work every day.
Yep.
The employees just go to work every day and get their paycheck every day. The superintendent's going to go to work every day and not worry about the fight that you've brought because he or she, superintendent, just flips the papers through an email transmission over to the lawyer and moves on to their next task of the day to applying for some
Right.
grant that's going to
And-
bring in more money.
And
to the school
realistically,
district.
we pay for that law firm.
Yes.
You know what I
Literally,
mean? We pay
literally.
for the law firm to represent the district
to fight against
to
us.
fight against us.
Yep.
I mean, how insane is that? And I mean, to go to your point, you're saying that, these schools have millions of dollars. Austin, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the news article again. I mean, the Finger Lakes COVID-19 vaccination task group received $1 million
from local groups.
to be an organization in existence. Where are us parents
Where's our
getting
million?
that donation of $1 million to create this advocacy group so we can have a fair battle against
Exactly.
the district and groups like this? I'm like, there's nobody's fighting for us. We knew that a long time ago, right?
And you know what?
Nobody's showing up to fight for us. We have to do it on our own. We have to show up, stand up, know our
Exactly.
rights, be an expert, and we have to be like civil disobedience. We have to put our foot down when enough is enough.
They force us
Yeah.
to. Yep.
Absolutely.
And it's I don't even know if you can oversimplify this enough, but so they get the $1 million to, no pun intended, boost the vaccination effort.
That's exactly what their
Right?
website says.
It's just to buy billboards and to buy spots on the radio.
That's
so
exactly
that when
it.
you're driving down the road to work and your 20-minute drive to work, you're going to hear no less than 4 infomercials that are these bought and paid for commercials because ads on the radio are expensive.
Yep.
I've purchased radio ads in my career,
Right.
both as an attorney and in my tax
Right.
assessment company. And
Right.
I've been on Wham and I've been on 1280 ESPN radio and I've been on local FM radio
Mhm.
and it's not cheap.
Correct.
And I get, the spots that run during the UFO shows at 4 a.m. And those ones aren't cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Austin
Yeah.
loves when I bring up the UFO shows in the middle of the night.
Oh yeah.
So I think he hosts one of them. I'm just kidding. So he's going to tell us he's going to plug his own podcast here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So these ads are very expensive and they're running them, right through rush hour traffic when ads are the most expensive.
Right.
And they're doing that to convince you and I of something that we're already convinced of the opposite.
Right.
And it doesn't even matter if we're convinced of the opposite or not, because it's our right.
Right.
It's our right to be convinced of whatever it is we want to be convinced of when it comes to an injection going into our kid's arm.
Right.
Why are you spending money on radio advertising to convince me to put an injection in my kid's arm?
Right. And this is the part that, threw me for a loop. This Finger Lakes COVID-19 vaccination task force is apparently making policy for our director of health and athletics to follow in the district. So why is a vaccine organization, a vaccine marketing, vaccine propaganda organization making policy for a district that says we have your child's best health, safety, and education in mind? If that's who they're taking direction from, in addition to Bello and Mendonuts, right?
Yep. Then who are they beholden to?
Right. Who are they beholden to?
Not
Because
us.
Mendoza and Mendonuts and Bello are giving money in part to this organization. That's where they get the $1 million from.
Yep.
From the county Department of Health. So
here's one of our favorite pictures.
Oh, that's great.
This is Adam Bello speaking about indoor mask mandates
Without a mask on.
While he's indoors without a mask on.
He was holding his breath the whole time.
But
though.
no, you haven't. Don't you watch my show? Austin? What
I
is
do.
that?
I do.
Yeah, he has a microphone in front of
He
him.
has the podium.
He has
the microphone / podium exemption.
Yeah,
Oh, I
it
didn't
blocks the
realize.
particles.
Got
The
it.
When you're in
microphone.
front of a microphone, you don't have to wear a mask.
Yeah,
So now your microphone has a mask on.
that's fantastic.
My
It should be.
microphone doesn't wear a mask.
Oh well.
Yeah, I take the mask. See, here's the mask.
Right.
I don't let my microphone wear a mask.
Yeah.
See, some people come in here and they put
want a
two
double
masks. They want to double mask their
To
microphone.
double mask the microphone.
Yeah.
Do they have an organization? The
My microphone does.
make microphones free
Yes.
again or whatever.
This is the Got Freedom podcast
Got-
microphone,
Right.
so it doesn't wear a
Um,
mask.
But I mean, if parents who are involved, they know how difficult and challenging
Yes.
this is.
Absolutely.
And if you asked any of them, who do you go to for advice? Like, how do you make progress? How do you get things done? I would venture to guess that 9 out of 10 people would say there isn't one. And the
Yep.
other person would say, I don't know. Right.
Yep.
So the creation of this, again, it's in its infancy stages. We're crowdfunding
In order to grow it,
in order to create it,
create it and grow it.
grow it,
Yeah.
because the next school year, September of this year, that's going to pose even more challenges than we have today. And I don't know if I can, again, I shouldn't be in charge of this. I'm the cheerleader for it. Clearly we would need to appoint some people who have experience running a not-for-profit and managing budgets like that. But until we get to that point, I'm the point person. I'm the cheerleader. I'm getting it out there, right?
Yeah.
But
you're gonna start the snowball downhill here.
right. Let's hope so. And again, I understand that money's tight for everybody. But if there's anybody that has had a frustrating experience with the district, who has had to consider legal advice or other advice that would have cost them money and decided not to because they didn't have the money, that's exactly what this advocacy group would do.
Perfect.
So,
So tell us one more time where the site is.
it's
and how to
if you go to fundly.com, you can search
FUNDLY.
correct fundly.com. Is it .com or .org up there, Austin? Sorry.
That is .com.
.com. Sorry about that. I should have done my homework at that time.
You fool.
David versus Goliath is the campaign name. If you put it in the URL itself, it's fundly.com/help-David-beat-Goliath.
Perfect.
And it'll bring you to this page.
All right, and you get one shameless plug. You just recently started your own business.
I did.
correct?
I
You
just
wanna-
started my own business. And the reason that I'm in Irondequoit the last 2 days is because I was at the DMV twice. So
That's a tough
oh
place
my
to have to
God,
go.
New York State. So my business is
That's David versus Goliath too.
Yeah, oh man, don't even get me started. The new business is called Rock Clean Cans. And essentially what this business is I'm an owner operator of a miniature garbage truck, if you will, only it doesn't pick up your garbage.
I've been worried that I was going to end up in the back of a garbage truck since
Yeah, I bet, right?
over
Yeah.
all this stuff that's going on.
So we're not a competitor of Casella or Lilac or Ailes or Suburban. Instead of
Look, I didn't say give those companies a
Oh, I'm
shameless
sorry.
plug. I said
All right,
give your own company a shameless
rockcleancans.com. We're a bit organization, family owned and operated or business that cleans your garbage cans for you. So if you're having a 4th of July party, let's say, for example, and your wife is like, Chad, the garbage cans stink. You got to go out there and clean them before we have all these people over. You know as well as I do
that I'll be
that
sleeping
is-
on the couch that
yeah,
night.
because you're not going to do it, right? It's a brush, it's bleach, it's a hose,
Yeah.
and you get that stuff everywhere, and it's a nasty.
And then it's
nasty
all over the
job.
driveway, and then you got to clean the driveway on top of
Exactly.
it.
So this is a patent process where the back end of the truck has lifters, grabbers. We pick up your totes, turns it upside down. High pressure, high temperature water cleans the inside, and I have a hose to clean the outside.
So this is like a franchise, right? Didn't you buy this?
I bought. It's a turnkey business, so it's not a
Okay.
franchise. It's my my business itself. But the company that I had fabricate the vehicle is providing some business support, so it's not a franchise, more of a turnkey. So it's independently
Gotcha.
operated and owned. And
is there
we're
a website?
rockcleancans.com.
Perfect.
All one word. Rock Clean Cans. Thank you for the plug.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Love it.
Yeah, we're planning to be on the road the 11th. We were shooting for a 4/4 on the road launch where we could start selling and visiting clients. But the DMV issue kind of pushed things out this week, and weather isn't that great right now anyway. So we're going to be pushed out to the 11th.
Gotcha. Very
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
So I'll just I don't know if it's considered a shameless plug or not when the podcast host plugs his own business.
I think you
Is that-
should.
Is that considered a shameless
I don't
plug
think so.
or
It's your
a regular
It's
plug?
your airtime.
Yeah.
It's
So
your studio.
the tax opposer, right? So for all of those out there who think your tax assessment is too high, and there's been a lot of talk about this in the news media of late, the past few days, because a couple big towns in Monroe County, including my hometown right here in Irondequoit, New York, they were planning on doing a townwide update this spring, and Irondequoit pulled the plug on their update. But every year, the fourth Tuesday of May is what's known as Grievance Day. It only comes once a year. There's only one shot at it a year where you can challenge your assessment. If you don't challenge your assessment on the fourth Tuesday of May every year, then the next tax cycle, which is essentially your next two tax bills, your school bill in September and your county bill the following January, those next two tax bills are set in stone based on whatever the final assessment is on July 1 of the year. So you have to file your grievance by May, the fourth Tuesday of May. This year, the fourth Tuesday of May is May 24th.
Oh.
So every year I represent at least a couple hundred Monroe County and Finger Lakes homeowners in these tax challenges. So this is the time of year where people are contacting me, calling me. We have a website, thetaxopposer.com. There's what's called a Get Started page on the website, or a Get Started tab. So if you go on the website, thetaxopposer.com, and you click on the Get Started tab, you can just put in some basic information, your name, your address, and then somebody on my end will get an email, and then we'll begin to look into whether or not you're overassessed. If you're not overassessed, we're going to tell you that you're not overassessed so that you don't waste your time trying to be David versus Goliath at the Board of Assessment review hearing.
Right.
We don't want you wasting your time hiring an appraiser and paying for an appraisal. If I can tell you that you're not overassessed and I'm not willing to take your case on, there's a pretty darn good chance that you're in fact not overassessed. On the flip side, if I tell you that you are overassessed, that your property's assessment is too high, my success rate since 2009 when I started this business is 97%. So 97% of the cases that I take on, I will get your assessment lowered. I won't necessarily get it lowered, all the way down, so to speak. So if I think your assessment is $50,000 too high, I'm going to try to get it down $50,000, but I might only get it down $40,000.
Yep.
I might only get it down $30,000. In some rare cases, I might only get it down $10,000. But you're not going to pay anything unless we successfully get your assessment lowered. And then if we are successful in getting your assessment lowered, then we just share in the savings. So it's a win-win. We either win together or we lose together, and there's no catches. So go to the website, thetaxopposer.com. And if you think your assessment's too high, you need to do something about it now. Get a hold of me now, and my staff will start taking a look at it for me.
And that's countywide, Monroe County-wide?
Monroe County and all the surrounding counties. I do a lot in the Finger Lakes, which encompasses Seneca County, Yates County, Ontario County, Canandaigua Lake. We do a lot of properties on Canandaigua Lake. We do a lot of properties on Seneca Lake, some on Cayuga Lake, and
the tax opposer.
The tax opposer.
Love it. Your sister wants to know if she gets a prize for staying on the whole podcast.
I have a highlighter here.
Autograph something.
We have an orange highlighter. That's about all I got on the table. We have these Let's Go Brandon candy hearts left over from Valentine's Day.
Fantastic.
I don't see any other prizes on the table.
I got nothing either.
So that's it.
I didn't bring anything with me. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Next time.
All right. So thank you to Dave Calus for joining me here on the Got Freedom podcast today. Again, this is the We the People Podcast Network. Please go to our Facebook page. And what did you do? Start the music already?
Did he?
I don't know. I heard something.
I moved the microphone. And
I thought that was just a chair creak.
No, it was the microphone arm.
Oh, okay.
Austin's trying to kick me off already.
No,
so,
not yet.
Go to the We the People Podcast Network Facebook page and become a member if you'd like. And please share this episode out there. So thank you again to everybody. And you know what I say now. Buy more ammo. Go America.
Right on. Thank you.